People say that I'm one of the greats, I'm the one that you love to hate. Shake 'em up like a quake, pop your feelings and turn and dispose 'em like haters I throw away. I'm forever blessed, got the spirit that's holy controlling me, I ain't gotta coordinate. I just sit back and book my bills and I'm ready to blaze in the stars of my destination. Melted broadcast, open vision. Melted broadcast, open vision. Melted broadcast, open vision. Melted broadcast, open vision. What's going on, everyone? This is Tony Mars with the Melted Broadcast. Today's guest, Michael Kopf. Michael Kopf is a Reiki master who also obtained a reverend's license and a 2.5-year study, wrote 2 sermons to protect himself as he does Reiki work. Michael has studied Hana, timeline therapy, tarot cards, gypsy palm reading, and other modalities growing up. He has the ability to astral travel and has had 3 near-death experiences over his current lifetime. In 2023, Michael launched The Energy That Surrounds Us and Paranormal V's on the eTalk.tv network and has live radio shows on the eTalk.tv network as well. In June 2023, he became the sole host of The Energy That Surrounds Us. In December 2023, Michael started to air all his shows on rumble.com. In January 2024, he launched Writing Through the Unknown on its own dedicated channel on eTalk.tv. Welcome to the conversation, Michael. Michael, so tell me when all this began.
So I actually kind of grew up in paranormal. Well, I say in the paranormal, I thought it was just spiritual, metaphysics, until I started actually getting into the paranormal and studying it and realizing all these experiences in my life that I thought were just metaphysical experiences are actually paranormal. And so I was like, I actually grew up in this. And I had an incident when I was 2 that has been like an unraveling story for me that has been brought up and clarified on some of the shows on my series,
Okay.
The Energy That Surrounds Us. And what I love about the paranormal is just that. It's like you have a story, you share it, then you get a piece of that puzzle, you slot it in, you start to share it, and then you expand to add the new piece, and then you get another nugget, then you add that in, and then it's like, oh, well, then somebody comes in and goes, well, actually, this part of the story is different. That never actually happened. It was more a here.
Yeah.
And so it's like, after all this collaboration and compilation, it's like, now we got to the truth of what happened. And for me, what it was is when I was 2, I always thought I was in the attic of a 2-story home that had a basement. And I was over a vent opening, and what I remembered was falling in the vent. And I don't know if you can tell, but my eyebrow has a little bit of missing hair.
Yeah.
That's from where a wire nicked my eyebrow.
Oh, damn.
And I hit the concrete basement through this vent shaft, got up, and had no broken bones, no damage or anything. And it was always just this story I was like, yeah, I fell down a vent. That's why my eyebrow's cut. So it's like I have a memory through that. Well, as a teenager, I realized in a meditation, I was like, wait, I saw a figure come while I was falling, grab me. We have a 10, 15-minute conversation.
What?
As I'm falling, and I'm like, yeah, there's no way I had 10, 15 minutes hanging out in this vent. I'm like, you fall, it's a matter of seconds.
Wait, so you had a 10, 15-minute conversation with this figure?
Right, with the being that was holding me. So it's like I was pulled out, frozen time, to have this conversation, reinserted, and then hit, and everything was like, okay. Then I find out from a friend that I had interviewed on my show, Catherine Sorlos, and she says, the entity actually grabbed my arm and that caused me to go in. So he accidentally pulled me in, and a second being came, and that's the one that helped me land and was unharmed. And so I was like, so there was two. Okay. And then and this all started unraveling like a year or two ago. And then it was like a few months after that story, my mom goes, you keep telling everyone it happened in the attic, but you were on the second floor. It was never in the attic. And what makes it even more interesting is the vent had a board over it. And so when I fell in, something had to move the board. And so it's like, okay, so now that I have this new picture, it's like, now I have new questions of what moved that board.
Yeah.
And it's like, now it's like, oh, whatever this was that accidentally pulled me in, it's not so accidental because they had to move a board
Yeah.
get me to fall in.
So the board was like physically moved, or like maybe they like pushed you through it?
She said they were doing like remodeling or something, and so there was board over it. And then when they saw that I was missing, the vent was open. There was like no board over it. So something had moved it.
I'm sorry. I had a question. Do you remember what that conversation was? When you had like a 10-15 minute conversation with them?
I do, actually. And this is the moment where I tell everyone this, what 2-year-old has this conversation.
Right.
So my conversation was, do you want to check out? Are you done? Or do you want to stay and do your work? And I said, well, I want to help people, but I don't have the means to do it. If you're going to reinsert me to where I can help people, I need these gifts, I need these abilities, and I start laying out everything I need. And they're like, okay, so you need this, this, and this. All right, we can do that. And I was reinserted. Wake up, and I'm like, all right, and had no memory of it. It's like my mind was like, okay, we're going to wipe this until he's ready. But it's like, yeah, what? And this is where I get people, and I'm like, this is what sets me apart from, I think, other 2-year-olds is what 2-year-old is sitting there bartering one with the spirit.
Yes.
Yeah.
And second is saying, I need these abilities, these gifts, and laying out exactly what's needed to accomplish something.
And that's exactly what I was about to say. Yeah. What 2-year-old does that? So you think that you bartered with them. You said, this is what I need. These are the gifts I need to help people. And that's what is that now, now that you've got those gifts, and that's what put you at where you're at now and helping all these people because you do a lot of stuff. You do tarot readings. And there's something else that you do that I'm not sure what it was, but timeline.
Like going back to also what you said. So they said they will give you this information or something like that whenever you're ready. So how did that happen? Like, was it like a past life regression, or like when did you get this information?
So I think what it is I ask them when I'm able to understand how to use it, bring it. And so I would start having noticing, if I cut my arm on something, it would heal up almost instantly. Depending on how badly cut it was. If it was really deep, it may be gone in a day. I would start to heal faster, and I wouldn't catch the flu. or I wouldn't catch a cold. And I was like, so I started noticing something's different. And I'd start, thinking, well, why is this so, why is this happening to me?
Yeah.
And then finding out, well, if I want to help people, I can't get sick being around someone who's sick. So,
Yeah.
well, that explains why it's like really rare for me to get sick because I can go out and help people. And it's like I started putting two and two together and going, okay. And growing up, my mom was a medium. And so I would attend her sessions with groups, and everyone was like, oh, when's your turn? And it's like I could feel like my turn was coming, but I started like trying to force it and being like, okay, it's coming. And I would go and talk to someone and be like, I can't do it. Why can't I do it? I feel like I can do it, but I can't. And they're like, well, when you're 16. So then 16 came in the way. And I'm like, I still can't do it. And so then I was like, you know what? Forget it. It's not happening. Apparently, whatever course I was supposed to be on to make this happen,
Yeah.
I got off of. And so I'm going to move on. And then it was like mid 20s to late 20s, I actually started to channel. And I was
Okay.
like, oh, I can channel now. And it didn't look like my mom's channeling. So it's like I questioned it at first. And I was like, okay, so this is my niche. That's your niche. Got it. And then I was like, okay. And then I was like, well, channeling only will get me so far. And really, it's hard to get people to sit down and go, yeah, I want to talk with these beings and these, other beings and going, and hearing what they want to say. It's like everyone wants to know from their family or what's going, the typical like going to a psychic and going, am I going to find this year? It's like, I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm not that kind of reader. So,
Yeah.
and I then was like, well, maybe I can because I channel. Maybe I can, manipulate it to another form.
Yeah.
And started looking at cards. And at first I was like, well, I'm looking at a guy holding a sword and going, well, what is this supposed to mean? And then I would listen to a friend giving a lecture and he's like, well, you see this symbol here that, you had to really look for and know it was there. And I'm like, well, oh, there's hidden symbols in here. And then he's like, this tells the story. And it's like you start to realize, okay, so the card is a story. And so then I was
Okay.
like, oh, and then the channeling would come in and be like, okay, here's the story that needs to go through. And we're relating it to this image so you can relate it to the client. And I did that for a little while. And I was like, I'm still feeling like, how you get that feeling of there should be more.
Yeah.
This is too limiting. I should be able to get out more. I remembered going to a Reiki class, which was an
Okay.
energy healing modality. And I was like, it teaches you how to utilize the energy that's around. And I was like, I can do that. And I'm sitting there, and my mom went through, and there was a bunch of other people, and the hosts were walking around, and they were supposedly putting the symbols, and initiating you in. And they get to me and they go, oh, well, this one's a natural. And so in my mind, I was like, well, if I'm a natural, I don't need to study. I'll just, and so it's like, I was just like, okay, whatever, and don't need to pursue anymore. If I'm a natural, I'll just flick it on when I need it and whatever. And that actually was a disservice for me in a way, but also a really cool service because it taught me that even though I'm natural, there is still stuff to learn.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the right teacher for me. So when I was in my late 20s, early 30s, I met a friend named Neil who teaches Reiki. And I told him my story. I said I went through Reiki 1 already, and they told me I was a natural, so didn't really pursue it. And he kind of just smiled and he goes, why don't you attend my class and use it as a refresher and we'll see what you really know. I was like, cool. So I go and I attend his class, and we're sitting in there, we're talking about the symbols, and I'm like, yeah, I got this, I got this. And then he goes, so when you get your hands over someone, if you're on this side of the body, that's masculine. This side of the body is feminine. I was like, wait, what? I was like, hold on. And he goes, now, where is this energy coming from? What is this energy telling you? And I'm like, wait, this is channeling. Reiki uses channeling. And I got so much education through that one session where he's like, yeah, they would teach us to read, and whatever the blockage was, we could figure out, was it the mother side? Was it the father side? Was it from a male friend, female friend? Where did it come from? Let it out, and people were starting to feel better and everything else. This is really cool. And this is on a whole nother level. So I went back to him and I said, I want to take a course too. So I got Reiki 2. And then he goes, I'm offering Reiki 3, and for $50 more, you can get master level. And I was like, well, what's master level? He goes, well, you can teach it to someone. I was like, yeah, I might do that. So, for $50, that sounds like quite a deal instead of paying like the $100 or $200 for the class again. So I was like, yeah, I'll do it. So I got my Reiki master and found out that unlocked in me learning how to use elements to heal myself and others. And it also opened my awareness up to going into locations and being able to read or hear stuff. And all of my paranormal stuff slowly came to me. And I feel like it was because my nature is, if I get something unlocked right away, I'm using it. I'm not focusing on let's, learn how to use it properly. I'm like, I got this.
Yeah.
Go. And so they were like, it took me like 2 years to see my first apparition. Okay. And it was like 3 years for my first EVP. And I think, and to me, it was because they knew if I got everything up front, I'd be like, oh, I know everything that there is to know about this. I can get this, I can get that. And I wouldn't really be the true investigator. So it's like, that's why I say everything came when it was meant to. It's like they unlocked as you reached it's like a game. You reached a certain level, you unlock a new ability. Mm-hmm. You get to another level,
you level
new
up.
ability.
So this first apparition that you saw, can you walk us through it and, like seeing how it happened?
Sure. So I was attending an event to where Mustafa and Kristen from Ghost Hunters, the second edition of it, the second team, and they were guest investigators at a hospital that I investigated in Mineral Wells. Well, we had just opened the crematorium that day. I mean, literally, like earlier that day, we had finished sweeping it out because over the weekend we emptied it out so we could investigate in there. And Kristen starts doing this meditation, like kind of getting everyone into the energy and kind of getting everyone prepared and the space prepared for whatever's coming. And I'm watching, and something says, look up. And I see this white coat start running towards the door. And I'm thinking, crap, this person's about to barge in while she's doing her meditation talk, and that's going to disturb everything. So do I go over to the door and risk disturbing everybody, and she's going to the other side, in which case I disturbed everybody, or what? And then I was like, okay, let's just stay here and let's just keep an eye on it. And I'm watching, and they never came in. Well, I then blinked and realized this person in the white coat never walked out of the room. So they were outside. But then I was like, the only way I could see outside is to see through the wall, because it was brick and the windows had like a piece of furniture blocking it. And so I was like, oh my God, I just saw an apparition. And so I'm like, I want to go, okay, there was this apparition that just came through. But then I was like, I don't want to be the guy that interrupted Kristen. So I waited till she was done. And she goes, okay, now that we're done, what does anybody have anything they'd want to share? And I go, well, while you were doing your thing, a spirit ran across behind those 3 chairs behind you. And she looked at me and she goes, why didn't you say anything? I didn't want to interrupt you. She goes, interrupt.
It's my first day.
So that's my fun story about first investigating with her and seeing the apparition there. That it was like, yeah, it became this huge funny story between us. That she's like, yes, you're the only person who's really nice in the wrong way. Because it was really nice and respectful of you not to interrupt, but you really should have interrupted.
Well,
that's kind of hard to process, especially for me, because I overthink everything. So the way you're thinking, like, is running across, and you're like, well, I don't want to be the one that interrupts. Like, my mind would literally be processing the same way.
Yeah, overthinking and way too much in the headspace. Yeah. That's hilarious. I have a question. You've done astral traveling before?
I have.
Yeah. Well, my question is, how do you know that that's actually what you're doing versus a dream? Like, how would one know the difference?
Or the difference from those two and remote viewing?
Oh, yeah.
Or if it's the same or kind of tied in.
Remote viewing is, as I understand it from talking with Jessica Jones and Michelle Freed. I was trying to remember the names of all the remote viewers I've talked with on my show. And they're given targets. It's like your mind is set to a location or an event, even though you don't know necessarily what it is, but there is something specific. Or maybe you do know what it is, and you're going to focus in on that. That's remote viewing. Your intention is to view a certain area, what's happening there. Astral travel is, and I love how you asked this question, it's more of like out-of-body experiences where you can be floating above, watching things happening around you, and you can go to, say, Ireland, or you can go to Hawaii, see what's going on there. And how you know it's astral is, 1, 99% of the time nobody sees you. because you're asleep and it's your spirit out moving about. And secondly is you're not focused on breathing or focused on how am I getting where I'm going. You just go. So that's how you know you're an astral. It's like if I was to float above my body and go, I wonder what it's like on the moon. I'm on the moon. I don't think about,
so
did
it's instantly.
Right.
Okay.
And I don't think about, geez, did I, get on a plane? Did I get on a shuttle to get up here on the moon? No, you don't think about that. You're just there and going, okay, now that I'm on the moon, what's there to see? And you don't even think about, okay, I'm walking on the moon. You're just like,
It's just there.
I'm here.
Astral teleportation.
And you also realize, like in that instance, you could say, I'm on the moon and I'm not breathing, but I'm alive and I'm still functioning. This is definitely not a dream.
Yeah.
Because it's like in your dreams, you're like, you'll start to panic and you'll wake yourself up going, oh my God, what was that? Whereas with astral, you're like, okay, it is what it is. And now, where else can I go? And you start to explore.
Yeah.
Do people remember when they wake up that that's what happened?
Sometimes, and sometimes no. Like, I can travel to, say, several different places. And if I remembered everything I did, I would be like, I'd wake up exhausted thinking, oh my God, I did this, 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 and this. I never rested. Whereas my body will go, and my mind will go, yeah, we traveled last night. And, we went to do some stuff. I'm like, okay, that's cool. And it's like, I feel rested because I'm like, yeah, I traveled, but I'm good. I don't know where all I went, but there's like, sometimes there's like, you might wake up and you're like, man, my arm is hurting. I wonder where I went. What was I doing that my arm is hurting? It didn't hurt before I went to sleep. And that's the thing that people don't realize with astral travel is they think and like watching like movies and hearing people talk about, oh, I went here, I went there, and then I came back. Nobody ever really discusses if I get, in a fight in the astral, which is possible, and somebody cuts my arm will hurt like it got cut, even though there's no cut.
Yeah.
When I wake up. So you can get hurt in the astral. And people then will say to me, well, can you die in the astral? And unfortunately, the answer is yes.
You better not.
It is possible that, your spirit gets hurt bad enough. When it comes back to the body can't heal everything, or it's like, think about it this way of it's energy. Somebody put like energy through your heart in the spirit world. And when you come back and your heart feels like, oh my God, I've been pierced, it's going to stop working because it's like, I've been pierced, even though it hasn't, which can cause you to die. So you have to be careful in the astral plane. It's not everybody's nice and everyone's going to welcome you and you're going to be surrounded by all these great people. No, there are bad elements out there.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine years ago when I was going through a situation with my dad, and I talked to him, and I've said I felt like I had died. I woke up feeling like I had died briefly, and I went on in detail to tell him everything because it's weird that I remembered that, and It's like nobody really knew I was there except for the one person that I was going to go and find, right? And he told me that. He said, this sounds like this is what you did. Don't do that again. I just warn you because things can happen, over there that you may not make it back. So yeah, I've heard that before. That's interesting.
And also it kind of takes me back to the Sinister movies, where the kid, he's astral traveling or whatever, and I guess he's trapped. So, I guess, trapped, not hurt, but he can't come back. So his physical body is kind of like in a coma.
Right.
I've never seen those movies.
Oh, well, man. And another point even further with that is that when you're in the astral, your body is not tethered to your spirit.
Yeah.
There are some people that say you can tie a cord and everything, but when you're out in the astral, you go where you go and you just return where you're supposed to be. And so I tell people, if I'm asleep, don't wake me up, because if I'm traveling, you are going to cause, by moving my body, two things. One is, if I'm so far out that it's taking say 30 seconds to get back. Well, in 30 seconds, my body could be in another room.
Yeah.
Well, I'm coming back and I'm like, where's my body? Now I'm like, oh crap, I lost my body. Somebody has taken my body. Now I got to go find it so I can get back in it. And I mean, even if I had a cord, it would take time to find where everything was. And so I'm like, yeah, don't move me. And the other thing is, say I'm like in the upper atmosphere and someone shakes me awake. My body is going to be like a meteor hitting into my body. So my bones are going to start to hurt. Yeah. Because they're feeling the pressure of my energy spirit slamming into the body. And I'll be like, ow, what? I'm not going to be happy you woke me up. And I'm going to be like, that hurt. And they're going to be like, all I did was shake you. I was like, no, you didn't just shake me. You caused my body to slam like 100 trucks into a wall.
Wow. That's interesting.
So yeah, I'm always like, I tell people, I'm like, don't ever wake somebody up that can astral travel, because you never know if they are or not at that moment.
All right, so let's fast forward to I know I read in your bio that you had a few UFO UAP sightings, and being in our community, those are big topics. So I'm very curious on I believe you have 5, maybe.
I had 5, and I really talk about 2 that kind of stand out, 3 sometimes. And the first one that I like to share about it was, I walked outside and it was nighttime. And something says, when I walked out the door, look up to your right. And I look up to the right and there's a cloud. And it was a pretty big cloud. But all of a sudden I would see like a yellow burst. And then I would see an orange burst. and then it would be like an orange burst here, and then a yellow burst here. And I was like, there's no sound. And I'm like, and I know ball lightning, and I know heat lightning.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is not that. It literally, like, if you had ever seen a sci-fi movie where the laser or a phaser or a energy weapon impacted on the shield,
Yeah.
that's what it was looking like.
Okay.
And I was like, the different colors to me was different factions. And I was like, I'm watching a battle take place.
Oh.
And I'm like, I could never see the ships themselves, but I would see the impacts.
Were they different color phasers?
They were. It was like the orange, it would be like an orangey red and like a yellowish, like, oh, not mustard yellow, but kind of like close to a like brownish yellow mix. And they were like, and they would alternate side to side, and then they'd be all mixed. And I was like, this is a battle. And, you're thinking, anybody in this situation, you're going to go, let me get my camera out and film this.
Yeah.
No, I go inside and say to my mom, hey, do you want to see a UFO battle? And she's like, yeah. I'm like,
of course, who doesn't?
And she's watching it. And I'm like, yeah, we're watching this, and there's no sound. And the reason I also say is like a battle is, so let me use this backdrop. So this is the cloud. This is the night sky. This is the night sky. There's only this cloud. So it's like everybody knows when you have a cloudy night or a partly cloudy night, there's never just one cloud.
Yeah.
So it was like something was being hidden, masked away. And I was like, yeah, I wish I had gotten the evidence and filmed it, but I was like, it's so much better having it filmed in the brain. It's like, I know I saw it. Yeah. And I talked to some UFO people about it, and they're like, it does sound like you've seen something. They won't say, yes, it was like UFOs in conflict or, ships. But they're like, yeah, you definitely did see something, because when I was looking at ball lightning, they're little balls moving around. I was like, that's not what I saw. It was literally looked like impacts. And so that's my favorite one to share, because that's like totally unique. Not many people super awesome. See that. And it was over my house. That was the other thing that was why it stuck in my brain, is it was in the general area of where my house was.
Yeah.
And I was like, this crap is happening over my house. You better not crash into my house. Because I do not have this or spaceships landing uncontrollable into the house.
Yeah, I mean, I would love for some spaceships to like land in the front yard or the backyard, but as far as having a battle, I mean, we're cooking ribs right now, so I don't want them to mess that up.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't mind the landing either, but I'm like, as long as it's a controlled landing and all engines are failing, we're gonna land right in that living room.
Yeah.
Sunroof in.
That's crazy.
Another one that I had that I got a lot of controversy over was, so I was working on a job where I was out and about in places, and I was in a parking lot of a strip mall along a highway. So again, I could never hear, if the thing was making noise or not.
Yeah.
And I use thing because I don't really know what it was. But I noticed, again, I got a feeling, look up. And so I'm looking straight out, and like there's this little thing in the air. And my first thought is, oh, that's probably a light post.
Yeah.
And then I realized there's no pole underneath it. I'm like, and the light poles are over on the sides, and they're like this high. The object is up here. So I'm like, it's higher than everything. And so I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. It's probably, and then my mind goes, well, it's probably a plane, flying by, and it just looks like it's standing still. It'll probably be gone. So I break down all my equipment that I had for my job, and I walk over to my car. It's still there. Same spot. So I'm like, all right. I go in, I put everything away at my car. I go into the place where I was at, out front of their place, to let them know I was leaving. And I come out, still in the same spot. Hasn't moved. And I'm like, my mind now sits there and says, wait a minute. We don't have any technology of planes that I know of that can hover in place silently for several minutes. I'm like, it's like, no, this can't be. And so this one I actually took photos of. I took 3 photos of it.
Okay.
And it looks like this little black speck, and everyone's like, oh, that's a plane. I'm like, you don't understand. It never moved to this spot for 5 minutes. Planes do not, under any optical illusion, stay in the same place for 5 minutes.
Right.
I see planes literally every night because I work at the airport. So
yeah.
I see them coming at every angles.
I mean, so you would agree, seeing it there in the exact same spot for 5 minutes is impossible.
Yeah, for sure.
Unless it's on the runway waiting to take off, but not in the air.
Have to be like going forward at a certain angle, and you'd have to be like going backwards at a different angle for the illusion for it to be like that. But if he's stationary, like standing there looking up at it, I mean, it don't make. Yeah, I mean, it's.
Yeah, and the reason why I say it was always in the same spot is I had taken from my first looking at it where the light posts were compared to it. And so I would be looking and like, it may have started here, but now I'm standing over here.
Yeah.
But it's still equidistant to the light post. And I'm like, no, that object is standing still. And that got my attention. And I was like, all right, you guys have my attention. But I've noticed on every occurrence when I see the UFO, and this is one thing that I'm sure your guests have told you, when if you have any that are UFO witnesses,
all the time.
Yeah.
you get a feeling to look up. It's like something tells you we're here.
Like literally word
That's
for word.
That's exactly what they say. Yeah.
Like to the T.
Something told me to look up.
Look up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they've all said it. Yeah.
I've seen them when I'm driving to where I'll think, oh, that's a speck on my windshield. But it's always in the same spot. And then I'll be like, I'll pull over and I'll get out of the car and I'm like, nope, it's literally still there. And it's not a star, not a planet. I'm like, because there's nothing else in the sky, but there's this little dot. And I'm like, okay, I see you. And then I'll start driving and I'll look up and I'll be like, it's gone. It's like they just wanted to say, hey, we're here.
You never thought about communicating with them?
Now that you say that, no. I think the communication that we had was just them saying, we're here. If you want to see us, here's where we are. And so I was like, okay, I trusted my instincts and looked, saw. And I was like, okay, that was enough. I didn't feel the need to go, okay, so what's your guys' mission? What you guys doing here?
Yeah.
Are you coming for survivors of where we're at now in this world?
Yeah, I remember they're looking for a place to survive. I
picked the wrong planet for that.
Oh yeah, for real. If I
We're trying to survive.
if
and have a
I was
hard
an
time.
alien from somewhere else and I came to this planet and I saw what was going on, I'd be like, deuces. I'm gone. I'm
Like,
gone.
I'm gonna veer a little left, and we're gonna go things over there. Yeah, we're gonna
Yeah,
things are a little more hospitable over there.
yeah,
That's hilarious.
yeah, definitely.
That's interesting.
All right, so we'll jump back into your bio, of course. Because I read it. I had to read it. And I went
I
through it.
know what
And
question you're wanting to ask, and
which
I'll
one?
answer it is what is timeline therapy?
Okay. Yes, I,
And
I actually asked her that too earlier.
I have no idea.
I don't know what this is. I was like, I'm curious.
I don't know. What is
so
it?
it's a really cool healing modality that is the reason it's called timeline therapy is the way I was taught it is so let's say I have a pattern of every time I make $100 in a week, I lose it. It's
Okay.
like I can't make more than $100. It's just something happens, and I always will be like, "That's it. That's as much as I'll allow." So timeline therapy, what it is it goes and it says, "Okay, you're put into a trance state," and it goes, "Where do you see where you can't earn more than $100, or you can't have more than $100?" And this is where it gets into the gray area because when you deal with timelines, the timeline goes back as far as the timeline will go. Now, in our terms, we look at timelines as in our current timeline. And in the spiritual world, there's a thing called the past life timelines
Okay.
or alternate timelines where you could be living in alternate reality. But we don't, in timeline therapy, I never dealt with the alternate realities really because I figured that out later in life. But when I was taught timeline, is we could look to see is the root cause something you learned in this life or was it a past life? And so, and you go to the event that's called the root cause. So it could be like, say, 20 lifetimes ago. You were living the high life and everybody around you was like constantly asking you for money. And you realized, man, if I only had $100, everyone leaves me alone. So I want to be left alone. So you then implanted, you will only ever earn $100. So you can be left alone.
What?
Or vice versa is I have $100, everyone, or I have $300. Someone just mugged me for 200. Now I have
Yeah.
100.
Mm.
Or this country invaded and just stole everything off my land. So now I have $100 or less to my name. They took everything else. So now your spirit says, okay, $100 is our safety net. So from everywhere from that point on, you always subconsciously, without thinking about it, said, okay, this is where I'm comfortable with. And so you will enact in life and be like totally fine with having $100 a week. And everything works out in your life. So you're like,
Yeah.
no big deal. But then you start to think, okay, now I'm wanting to do this, this, and this. I can't do that because of this. Nothing at work is doing this. So what we do is we go back to that root event 20 lifetimes ago where that happened and said, even though you may have had the money stolen or was left alone, you were always in great health. And it's like, yeah, and, I was in great health. You were happy that you had more when you had more. And you're like, yeah. And your mind starts picking out the positives of the scenario. And then you go and you say to yourself, even if someone does steal or invade and takes or robs me or I give it away, I'm okay having more because I can always get more.
Yeah.
And it's not a harmful thing. And so you put that positive mantra, so to speak, or a positive spin to it, implant that back in, and then you see this ripple rips out like you would throw a stone in a pebble or a pebble into a lake, that ripple effect.
Yeah.
Right.
So you watch that, and then you realize a couple of days later, or a week later, a month later, it may be the end of the week, and you look and you're like, I got $200 this week,
Yeah.
and everything's okay. Or, it could be, I have $101, or, and you start to see, oh, I'm not reacting the same way. It's changed. So that's why it's called timeline therapy, is it changes the past event, how it impacted you in the present, and it rewrites how your body and energy will respond to that event.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Did you have a question?
Well, he answered it.
Okay.
How did you, basically how do we break that cycle? But he pretty much answered that.
Okay.
And the beautiful thing is you can look at it too in the way of, why am I not happy at 30? And you can go back and find a root cause of something that happened in one of your lives at 30 that everything was downhill after that.
Yeah.
Rewrite it. And then the rest of your days, you're like, hey, stuff will still happen, but you're not going to react the same way.
Yeah.
And so you can use it in relationships and work and friendships and all kinds of things.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, it's something I always think about, like at this point in my life, instead of going this way, I did this and it set me on this route. And, it's kind of like, I guess, learning your lesson and, doing it different the next time.
Right.
And it's something I've always think about, but I never thought of it, the way that you said it.
Yeah, the way you explained it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
And I'm with you. I believe, choices happen and, we react, but we never think about why we react the way we do and why. We just say, okay, I've made a wrong choice.
Yeah.
And go, well, I'll either rectify it, or I'll be like, I made my bed, I'm going to lie in it and just be miserable for a little while longer until you finally are like, you know what? I've had enough. I'm making a change. And that, to me, is the beauty of the quote, human experiences. We never can make a wrong choice. As much in life as things look like wrong choices, there really are, when you think about it, no wrong choices, because like you were saying, you took this turn instead of this turn, and now you realize this is not the turn you want anymore, so you're making another turn.
Yeah.
So therefore, there are no wrong choices, because everything is a choice, and it's just a matter of, do you still want that choice? No, make another one. Simple as that.
At the end of the day, we're all navigators. And and even with what you're saying, it goes to, exactly like with past lives, there's a certain, say, there's a certain cycle in the family, and it's doing this, and say it's all negative, it's a negative cycle, and you're trying to break that, you can still break that cycle.
Mhm.
Right. And yeah, and that's kind of the beauty of a lot of the spiritual side of growth healing modalities is they teach you, even though this was done to you, there's still positives from it, and you can make it a different choice. Like,
Yeah.
this way didn't work for you, but you still got the positives. So your mindset now is, this is an easier way to get here. So that's the new path that's going to form
Yeah.
and start. And generations down the road may be like, looking like we are going, I don't know why this a-hole did it this way.
Yeah.
This is totally wrong. We need to do it this way. So it's always changing.
Yeah.
Well, this last part was deep. It felt like a therapy session. That we got into that one deep. That was pretty good. But that was interesting. Okay, I get it.
Well, Michael, I want to go ahead and cut it right here because like we spoke before, I definitely want to turn this into maybe a 2 or 3 part series because I want to jump in to your 3 near-death experiences. And
Anytime.
and with that one, if you're up for it, it's gonna be our first time, but I would like to go live for that.
Always happy to go live. I have my
That
shows
would be
live,
interesting.
so yeah, I'm happy to do it live. Or it's kind of funny how our shows work. Is you do recorded, air later,
Yeah.
and you're dipping your toe into the live. My shows are live, and I'm dipping my toe into pre-recording.
Let's meet in the middle.
Because and it's something that's like, we don't think about with being podcast hosts. We do our best to accommodate guests,
Yeah.
but when you have guests that are overseas or in different countries that are like, you're asking them to get up in the wee hours of the morning to do live, it's like, no.
But
And I'll have
that guest.
I'll have one of those guests.
But even recorded, I mean, we've had guests in Australia, the UK, South Africa. The one that we released yesterday, he's in South Africa,
right?
And like, and it drives me nuts. It's like, all right, let's do it at this time. But they're like, I'm in Australia or I'm in South Africa or I'm here or there, and I'm like, damn, I'm like, looking at the time, like, and then I work all the time, and I work overnights, so it makes it super hard for me. So I'm having to, like, okay, tomorrow work's gonna suck because I'm gonna have to wake up super early and get like 4 hours of sleep for this episode, and then she's got to edit it, and then like I still got to be a part of it because I want to listen to it and hear it. So it's very hard, but
yeah.
I mean, it's worth it. Like, I mean, this is so fun. It's a dream, and we're living that dream.
Yeah, and it's kind of like in our field, we either adapt or we stay stagnant, and nobody's gonna. As entertaining as it is, it's like if you're always doing the same thing, we know that'll only last so long. You gotta be able to adapt. And I was like, I was losing guests because I would be like, yeah, it's like you were saying, UK from where I am, my show goes live at 9 o'clock. That's like 3 a.m. I believe in UK time. And I'm like, I can't ask my friend in the UK to get up at 3 a.m. and then go back to sleep, wake up for work. And I'm like, no. And then I had a guest in the UK that said, let's pre-record. And I was like, how do you do that? And she showed me how you can record.
What is this function?
You play it live. as a pre-recorded show. It's like you can do that, and I was like, I had no idea you could do that, and now I've done it like 3 times.
Three,
and I'm
that's
like,
it.
and it's like, yeah. And what's interesting is guests that normally would be off the table because of where they're at are now available. It's a headache trying to schedule the recording to fall before the episode. And so it's like, oh, wait, no, we got to push it off.
I never looked at it like that. I mean, that's a great way to look at it. You know, at least, you know, to keep people, you know, on schedule. You know, because I'm always having to work around my schedule, and it's the worst. Because like I said, I don't have a schedule, so it sucks. But I'm definitely gonna approach it, you know, with that mindset moving forward. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I am excited to be one of your first live shows. I think it'll be fun.
Yes,
And
everybody, he will be our first live show, Michael Kopf.
Now, just keep in mind though, when it's live, it's unscripted. You never know what's going to happen.
Oh man, I'm so nervous now. I get nervous. No, I really do get nervous, but we appreciate you for coming on. And if you want to shout out and put in your plugs for where people could get a hold of you at.
Sure. I'll hit the highlights because there's a long list. I have a link tree. Okay. I'm pretty sure I sent that to you. If not, I'll send it to you. That has all the links. But you can reach my show, The Energy That Surrounds Us, on our YouTube channel, conveniently named The Energy That Surrounds Us. Or it might be Tetsu. I like to shorten things. So I'm on YouTube with that. I'm on Rumble, which is, I'm sure that one is Tetsu. And I'm on etalk.tv, same as you guys.
Yeah.
Shout out to Jeff.
Yeah. eTalk.
And that show is live Tuesday nights at 9:00. And sometimes I have to do a show at 8:00 to fit the guest schedule. So I have a little leeway there. But majority of the shows I'll say are live because I've had to do a couple now that are pre-recorded.
Yeah.
And Wednesdays, I now have with season 2, I do 3 a month of my series called Writing Through the Unknown, which is my esoteric disclosure type series where we talk about topics such as UFOs, but we'll go into it as, are these UFOs ours or are they alien-made UFOs?
I would love to sit in on one of those episodes.
Yeah, and we talk about, like, you know, who are the Anunnaki? Everybody talks about the Anunnaki. Man. And I've had a couple different definitions. You know, the star races that are out there, we talk about that. So and one topic I kind of got to be careful about saying, but is the SSP, Secret Space Program.
Oh, okay.
So we hit on that. And so that one, is I get more in the interesting stuff that's, we call it esoteric, which means hidden knowledge. Yeah. And it's really not hidden. It's just we're not taught to look for it. So in essence, it is hidden by that way. And then Thursdays at 3:00, I have a show with Kel Ridley and Matt J.B. Atkinson, and we call it Paranormal Versus, VS. And the reason is Kel and Matt are in the UK. I'm representing the US. And we'll interview people on some controversial topics or some paranormal topics. And we try to work in, like, how is it different in the US versus the UK?
Yeah.
But mainly, we now are just kind of getting into just getting a lot of information out on topics that are, as I like to call, the fringe side of the paranormal. Like, we just had an episode, well, I could say yesterday, but when this airs, it won't be yesterday.
Last week.
Where we had a lady who I interviewed on my Tuesday night show about sleep paralysis. Her name's Vicki Joy Anderson. And if you guys want to delve into sleep paralysis, I will hook you up with her. She is an amazing guest.
Man,
She's
send her our way. Oh yeah,
and
sure.
and she takes it in such a way that it explains it, and it's like it's not what we think it is. That's all I'm gonna say about it.
Especially for me, because I've had since I was a kid, I've had a bunch of experiences specifically with sleep paralysis. With this lady who visits me, so I would love to see what she has to say about it.
Yeah.
Sure. All right. Well, before we wrap this up, we also have a little surprise. Little Miss Mary Bly is starting her podcast.
I am.
The Unhinged, a Mary Bly Show. If you want to go ahead and tell everybody the basic outline of it.
Real people, real topics, real stuff. It's a little bit about everything.
And she has an X account that you guys could follow her at also.
The X is at Mary Bly TMSB.
All right, well, there it is. So, Tony Mars, the Melted Broadcast, Michael Kopf, the energy that surrounds us, and Mary Bly.
The Unhinged. A Mary Bly Show.
A Mary Bly Show. So, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. And don't forget, stay melted.
People say that I'm one of the greats, I'm the one that you love to hate. Shake them up like a quake, pop your feelings and turn and dispose them like haters I throw away. I'm forever blessed, got the spirit that's wholly controlling me, I ain't gotta coordinate. I just sit back and buckle my bells and I'm ready to blast in the stars of my destination. Melted broadcast, open vision, melted broadcast, open vision, melted broadcast, open vision, melted broadcast, open vision.